Rome became famous for its discipline, organization, and innovation in weapons and tactics, allowing it to build and defend an enormous empire that dominated for centuries. This success was undoubtedly due to the rigorous training conducted by the mighty Roman legions. In this video, we will explore the training and recruitment of Roman soldiers. But before we begin, don't forget to like this video. And if you're new here, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any content from our channel. Let's dive into the video. The Roman army originated when Rome was still a modest city, facing various conflicts with neighboring peoples like the Etruscans, the Sabines, and others. The Romans began their conquests as a patriotic duty, where every free Roman male was expected to take up arms when necessary to defend their city. At that time, military enlistment was highly unpopular, since soldiers served without any pay during the war. Additionally, each soldier had to provide and maintain his own equipment. Once the danger had passed, the army was disbanded and everyone returned to their normal activities. However, with time and the vast territorial expansion that led to the rise of the Roman Empire, there was a need for a professional army that would be permanently available and could be deployed wherever necessary. From then on, serving in the army became a more desirable option. This was partly because a Roman soldier's salary was now considerably higher than that of common workers and was paid regularly. The groups of warriors that formed the empire's army, known as the Roman legions, fought formidable enemies like the Greeks, Carthaginians, Gauls, and many others. Before the time of the first emperor, Augustus, the Roman army was constantly on the march. Its forces occupied more than 10,000 kilometers of borders, stretching from Europe to Africa and the Middle East. Generally, these legions were organized mainly into three large groups or subdivisions: the centuriae, consisting of about 80 to 100 soldiers, the maniples, formed by 2 centuriae, and the cohorts, made up of 3 maniples or around 500 legionaries. By the middle of the 1st century AD, a legion was formed by a total of 10 cohorts, amounting to about 5,000 soldiers. At its peak, each legion could have up to 6,000 men, distributed to carry out various dangerous maneuvers. By the end of Augustus's reign, around the year 14 AD, Rome had a permanent army of 150,000 legionaries and 180,000 auxiliary infantry and cavalry throughout the empire. Legions were made up of Roman citizens born in the provinces. All recruits had to have their legal status verified to prevent slaves from enlisting. To fill the army with the necessary legionaries, a special recruiting officer called the conquisitor was responsible. The ideal age for a recruit was between 18 and 23 years. During the recruitment process, each civilian's skills were evaluated and put to good use. For instance, blacksmiths became armorers, tailors and shoemakers were employed to repair uniforms and footwear, while those without specific skills were used in Roman artillery. In addition, some magistrates and priests, due to their duties, as well as the sick and infirm, were exempt from military service. Although a recruit's previous occupation was important, attention was also given to age, height, education, and physical condition. For example, those who aspired to become army officers, such as centurions, needed to know how to read and write, as all communications written in Latin had to be passed on to the legionaries. Additionally, potential cavalrymen with good riding skills were recruited from enemies like the Gauls, Germans, and Thracians. Some recruits brought letters of recommendation that indicated they were born free and were citizens, which could lead to quicker promotions. If all standards were met during this probationary period, the recruit would enter the next stage, receiving a piece of metal to be worn around the neck, containing personal information akin to modern dog tags. Failure to wear this identification could result in severe punishment. At the assigned camp, the recruit would undergo rigorous training before officially becoming a legionary. The initial 4 months of training for a Roman legionary was supervised by a specialized officer known as the Campidoctor. Before recruits handled weapons, they were taught marching skills, as speed was crucial in any formation, whether for soldiers in the rear or those moving at different speeds. Standards varied over time, but typically recruits were first required to complete 20 Roman miles, approximately 30 kilometers, while carrying about 20 kilograms over 5 hours. This march was known as the regular pace or military rhythm. As they progressed, they moved on to a faster stage, carrying the same weight over the same period, but now covering 24 miles, about 35 kilometers. The typical conditioning regimen also included gymnastics and swimming to increase strength and physical fitness. After conditioning, recruits underwent weapons training, which was considered so important that weapon instructors generally received double rations. Legionaries were trained to wield their swords and defend themselves behind their large shields. Training exercises began with the throwing of a wooden sword and a pilum, a spear made up of a thinner, pointed iron section and a heavier wooden shaft. They threw these weapons at a wooden dummy or post while wearing their full armor. These wooden swords were designed to be twice as heavy as their metal counterparts, so that soldiers could wield the real gladius with ease. Next, based on their progress, soldiers moved on to single combat training, called Armatura. Unlike previous training, the wooden weapons used for Armatura had the same weight as the weapons they would use in battle. Additionally, other training exercises taught soldiers to obey commands and assume battle formations. Discipline during this training was strict. For example, centurions carried a vine cane used for flogging, even for minor infractions. In certain situations, the death penalty was authorized if a soldier was found guilty by a military tribunal. This could happen if a soldier simply fell asleep during guard duty, stole, or committed any act considered cowardly. If found guilty, the legionary could not appeal and would face a painful death, possibly even being thrown to the beasts. Such discipline was meant to ensure the unquestioning obedience of the legionaries. At the end of the training, the legionary had to take an oath of loyalty to the Senate and the Roman people, and later to the emperor. Finally, the soldier received a diploma and was sent to fight for his life and for the glory and honor of Rome. Without a doubt, the discipline and strategies used by the legions played an important role in the conquest of Rome's vast empire and continue to serve as examples for armies worldwide.